Getting a reservation at the Howard Johnson Earthlight Room is a killer. This is 2001: A Space Odyssey. Hello and welcome.
This is Seen and Heard. This is the podcast where two lowly entertainment assistants talk about the Sight and Sound top 100 greatest films of all time list. This week is a very special week because, look, this is a big one. I feel like we say that for a lot of them, but this is probably one of the most famous and recognizable movies on the entire list. Would you say, Jackie?
I actually made a note right here. I think this is like the majorest of major motion pictures on this list, if not ever.
I mean, The Godfather's on the list, too. And
that's true.
Citizen Kane.
By the way, the movie this week is 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, you guys didn't know that? Come on.
It's number 6 by Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah, I mean, it's safe to say that this is probably the most, recognizable and watched movie on the list. I mean, well, okay, next
Godfather.
to like maybe Godfather, maybe Citizen Kane. Although, you know what, more people today have probably seen 2001 than Citizen Kane, I would think.
Yeah, but not Godfather. I think Godfather is still number 1.
Yeah, I guess so, because 2001 has that whole sci-fi tag that comes along with it.
Like,
whereas
teenage boys now still love Godfather, but
Right.
Teenage boys I don't even think they know what 2001 is.
I mean, I wouldn't, if they love Christopher Nolan or something.
The average teenage boy.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they might be aware. Anyway, about 2001, we'll see. What have you been watching this week?
I've been not watching that much because I traveled a little bit, but I did watch before I went. I watched An Angel at My Table by Jane Campion.
What'd you think?
Loved it. It's like I was in the middle of the movie and I'm just like, why is this movie so good? And then I just remembered, I'm like, oh yeah, Jane Campion, here's the thing about her. She just makes good movies. She literally just knows how to make a movie. There's no other way I can explain it. The way that it's basically about this really famous writer from New Zealand. Her name is Janet Frame. Janet Frame? Yeah. The movie came out in 1990 and it's about this. She's an author, a poet who spent many years of her life in a psychiatric hospital because she was misdiagnosed with schizophrenia. And she grew up around World War II. And it's just a really good representation of family life, growing up with siblings, just very real, very raw. And then it's just a lovely story about wanting to change so bad, but not being able to change certain things about yourself. And it's just really sweet. It's a really good movie.
I haven't seen that one.
Queen Jane. She's fantastic.
I need to see it.
Yeah. What have you been watching?
There's two that really stick out that I saw in the last week. So one of them we did for the film club, which is a Michael Haneke movie called The Seventh Continent, which even knowing that it was a Michael Haneke movie, I wasn't fully prepared for the gut punch that this movie is. Have you seen it?
Mm-mm.
Do you know who he is? He did Funny Games and stuff. And
no.
The Piano Teacher with Isabelle Huppert.
Oh, that's been on my list for a really,
it's a great
really
movie.
long time.
But his movies are...
It's wild, right?
It's wild. Yeah, they're wild and they're very, very dark movies.
Yeah.
And this was his first film. We did it for the film club and everyone more or less really liked it. I hadn't seen it before, but it's the kind of movie it's over and you just need to turn something else on because you feel so bad about yourself. Yeah. It's rough.
Wow.
I won't even give away it's just a movie you should see.
Okay.
And then the second movie, which I really loved, is Lynn Ramsey's Morvern Caller.
Oh, I love that movie.
So good.
It's really good.
Yeah, I just saw it for the first time, and it was amazing.
That movie is shocking. It really is. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
I don't want to give it away, but I want to
Well, you get the premise. The premise is basic because it happens in the first 2 minutes of the movie.
And the first 2 minutes are what?
So it's Samantha Morton, and basically she lives with, I think it's her fiance because she's wearing an engagement ring or something. But so she wakes up and her boyfriend / fiance is dead on the floor of suicide.
Yeah.
And he's just written this novel that's on the computer, and he tells her like, send this to this agent, and then he leaves money for his funeral. I think it's like a couple $1,000. And so she goes to the novel. I'm saying this because, again, this is the first 5 minutes of the movie. She goes to the novel, takes his name off of it, and puts her name in and submits it. And then instead of using the couple $1,000s for the funeral, she just takes the money, and her and a friend go on a trip to Spain.
Yeah.
But it's it was great. I was completely blown away by it. It's one of those where like you see it and you're like, how am I just now seeing this?
Yeah. Yeah. It is good. But like, yeah, his suicide is...
It's rough.
Really rough.
There's a Christmas tree.
The Christmas tree!
Here's the thing. I saw this after I saw The Seventh Continent. So this was a bubblegum, like, pop song. Seriously.
We should talk a little bit about Oscar noms, don't you think?
Yeah.
They came out today, but you guys are listening from the future.
Yeah.
So they're a week old by now.
They're fresh to us right now.
And speaking of Queen Jane, obviously...
Power of the Dog.
Probably gonna win.
You think so? Best Picture?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
Craig,
I know.
Come on.
I know. There's no excuse.
But like, yeah. I think it's gonna win. I think she's gonna win too. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
How do you feel about Alana Haim being snubbed for actress?
I'm fine with it. I love her. I don't think that this is gonna like harm her in any way. I'm really glad that Kristen Stewart got nominated because like it was looking pretty grim for a while. She didn't get a BAFTA, which is like, okay, they're British, I get it, and it's about Diana. But like there were other things too. Oh, no SAG, and people were saying like this has never had. No one has ever got the Oscar nom after not getting the SAG, and I was like, oh shit,
huh?
And she got it.
Wow,
which is good.
I haven't seen that movie either. I need to do that.
I think you'd really like it.
Yeah.
I liked it. I loved her.
Right.
I really loved her. Kirsten Dunst finally, like,
oh yeah,
20 years later.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And then the actor category is a little weak though. I guess like Benedict Cumberbatch will probably get it. Worst person in the world only has a writing nom and an international feature nom. And it's like so good.
Honestly, that's how you know it's a great movie.
If it doesn't have them.
Yeah.
My attitude about the Oscars has changed so much.
Because you have to pay for it. But yeah, I mean, it's really not like, it's not an honest award system. Like you need to pay to campaign like the studio needs to pay for you for an Oscar campaign for consideration.
Yeah.
Like if you don't put anything into it, you cannot get nominated.
Yeah.
Which is such a backwards, it's just...
Yeah.
They should just look at all movies that were released. Mm-hmm. In the case of the Oscars, all American movies, although that's stupid, but I know they have the foreign film category, which other countries submit their own movies for. But just watch them all and then just like, what is this bullshit that like for your consideration? Yeah, it's bullshit.
It is. Shall we get into one of the greatest movies of all time that wasn't nominated for Best Picture? 2001: A Space Odyssey is a 1968 sci-fi epic directed by Stanley Kubrick, co-written by Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke, based on a novel written by Clarke, which he wrote simultaneously with the script. The film is divided into 3 parts, all pertaining to a moment in man's evolution, triggered by the appearance of a monolith, which is a tall, black, shiny piece of wall, for lack of a better word. The first part depicts the first use of a weapon by primates. Then the film jumps millions of years into the future when space travel has become commonplace, as scientist Dr. Heywood Floyd is sent to examine a strange object that has appeared on the moon. Spoiler, it's the monolith. 18 months later, we have astronauts Dave Bowman and Frank Poole on a mission to Jupiter along with Hal, who's the AI computer of the ship. Hal turns on the crew, claiming they are jeopardizing the mission with their human errors, killing all of them but Dave. There's a few guys that are sleeping in hypersleep. Kills everyone but Dave. The mission's purpose is revealed. They are being sent to investigate the radio signals sent to Jupiter from the monolith on the moon. Dave still goes to Jupiter, and once there, he travels through a mad rhapsody of time, space, color, and light, until eventually he is an old man, dying in bed. Monolith appears, and we can only guess that the fetus moving towards Earth, which is Dave, is the next step of humanity.
You did. That's a good job.
It's so long, but it's a long movie.
Before we get into anything, can we just say that the news broke today that I believe yesterday Douglas Trumbull, who was the effects supervisor for this, just passed away.
Aww.
And it was just released today. So I think he died yesterday, but rest in peace, Douglas
Wow.
Trumbull, a true legend.
Yeah, wow. That's incredible. Keir Dullea plays Dave. William Sylvester is Dr. Haywood Floyd. Gary Lockwood is Frank Poole. And Hal is voiced by Douglas Rain. And I'm going to get into who Douglas Rain is because it's kind of important. I mean, we'll see. Yeah, so with this movie, Kubrick wanted to make, as he called it, the proverbial good science fiction movie. Something that wouldn't become obsolete with new knowledge. He was inspired by Japanese tokusatsu films.
Oh, wait, tokusatsu movies, really?
Yeah, like models and puppets.
Yeah, like the Godzilla movies.
Yeah,
and stuff?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. He was also inspired by educational films, such as the animated short from 1960 called Universe, and the 1964 World's Fair movie To the Moon and Beyond. Douglas Rain, who voices Hal, is also the narrator of Universe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Isn't that cute?
It was cute.
The film received kind of mixed reviews upon release. Some people thought it was really boring. Some people thought it was really weird.
But it was like a big phenomenon. Like it shook up the culture at the time.
Definitely. It was nominated for Best Screenplay, as it was called back then, Best Story and Screenplay, which is weird because there's not that much talking. Best Director.
Yeah, but there's still a story.
Of course. But I just feel like of all things. Anyway, but it was also nominated for Best Director, Best Art Direction, and Best Visual Effects. And that was the only one that it won was visual effects. But it's just such a, giant of
production.
Yeah. And then the music is composed by all these. The music is a compilation of these beautiful classical music pieces.
Strauss. Kubrick's whole thing was that he used pre-recorded music most of the time. Like he very rarely had like original scores.
We're very excited to have our first guest this episode. So our guest this week is Kathryn Ferentchak. Kat is a producer, writer, and director, and she's one of my very dear friends. We directed a short film together last year, and she's obsessed with sci-fi, and this is like her favorite movie ever.
It's almost like she's the perfect person to bring on for this episode.
She also is a big help to us on the podcast. She gives us notes all the time. If you guys wait till the end and listen to the credits, you'll hear her name. Oh, hi.
Oh, hey. Well, hello.
Good evening.
It's a pleasure to be here.
How are
I'm
you
very proud of what
doing?
you guys are putting together. Man, can you imagine being nominated in the same special effects Oscar category as this movie?
Absolutely not.
Especially in 1968.
That's what I was going to say. I wonder how many nominations, how many nominees there were.
Yeah, I don't know.
Dealing with a movie that absolutely like revolutionized and invented new techniques.
Yeah.
Which still look, you said in your intro, he was looking to make a movie that would look good, and hold up throughout time. And now that it's 2021, 2022, how many years? Oh God, 11 years. Oh my God, 21 years after this was supposed to take place. What do you think? Holds up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kat, why don't you tell us? Let's start with you. Why don't you tell us your introduction to this movie, the first time you saw it, what you thought of it, your evolving over the years, like your evolving relationship with 2001?
Yeah, I definitely was first introduced to this movie as a kid. My pops is also into science fiction films, so this is definitely something that played, and I really had no idea what I was watching. Like, why was there this section with all these monkeys at the beginning? Later reintroduced to it sort of in high school, and again in college. I remember very formatively one of our professors pitching this as the as basically an acid trip movie. He's like, it's the 60s, you go in and there's here's an important question for you guys. Where did you watch this copy? Like, what did you watch it on?
Jackie?
HBO Max.
Oh, I watched it on 4K Blu-ray on my OLED 4K TV.
You know what? I literally bought the Blu-ray like 2 weeks ago and I was so excited. I was like, yes, I'll have the Blu-ray to watch when we have to watch this. And I was out of town, and I couldn't watch it on my Blu-ray, and it was just sitting. I was thinking of my Blu-ray the whole time.
So where do you watch it, Jackie?
What's up, Kat?
What did you watch it on?
I watched it on a TV at my boyfriend's apartment.
Was it like HBO though?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you were fucked.
What did you watch it on?
Greg, tell me now, because I watched the HBO version this time. And Greg, how does the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey begin?
It begins with 4 minutes of black.
Yes.
and HBO didn't have it.
HBO version. Honestly, I was scandalized.
Oh
no,
my God.
I didn't even
Listen,
realize that.
let's trash HBO Max right now in this podcast. You guys cannot cut out the first 4 minutes of this. Just because the screen is black doesn't mean the movie hasn't started, guys.
That's true.
They cut out. It's truly egregious. Like, can you imagine?
Wow.
No, I honestly can't imagine that.
Because the MGM logo came on, and then yeah. It just started.
God.
It just started.
It's like the overture.
The overture for 4 minutes, you get pulled into it. Just imagine being in a theater in the 60s. And as my professor would put it, you're like on LSD and it's starting to kick in. And you're just sitting in the theater and it's black and there's this music and it grows and it grows. And suddenly you realize you've been listening to music for 3 minutes and like nothing's on screen. And then bam, introductions.
So Kat, you're a big sci-fi fan. And
absolutely.
This is like Ground Zero, right? Pretty much.
One more time, say that again.
Like this is kind of Ground Zero. I mean, you can go back to the 20s with like Metropolis and stuff, but I mean, this, as far as like modern science fiction is concerned, do you consider this like the birth of the modern sci-fi movie?
This is definitely, at least by critics and people looking back at history, pinpointed as like the end of the Western and the advent of the science fiction movie as the principal media form, and the grand epic.
Yeah.
I think this is like my initial thought about just thinking about this movie, not even just watching it, just like the majesty. Like that is
Yes,
it.
yes.
If I can describe this movie, I don't want to call it majestic because that's simplifying it. I want to talk about the majesty of this movie.
I want you to talk about the majesty while you also tell us about the first time you saw it and where you're at with it right now in your life.
I've never seen it on a big screen. I've only seen it on TV. And first time I saw it, I don't know. It was probably like high school, honestly. And yeah, I was just like, I watched it alone, which was kind of sad.
Is it sad?
Yeah, because I think this is a movie you need to enjoy with someone. Like you need to look at their face and watch their jaw drop. And I was all alone. There was no one to watch my jaw drop. I missed out.
Oh.
I missed out. But I love this movie. I mean, this is an instant, like, I don't know, like when I saw it, again, monkeys, shocking. You know what I love? And this is also an initial thought because it's the start of the movie. I love that the movie starts in space and then you're just like utterly in Earth, like dirt. No, I don't even mean it Earth as the planet. I just mean Earth as like dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that always struck me as like, how does that work so well? How are we in space? How are we like hearing this orchestra, seeing these beautiful planets, and then like it just gets dirty, but it's still good.
It's the
like
contrast, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
the whole movie is about man's place in the universe, right? So it feels very fitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so this time around, it's so funny. Like this time around, I really, like I was watching the opening and I was like, this is like Melancholia, or Melancholia is this.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
And I don't think I ever realized that before. And Kat, we just watched Melancholia together kind of recently.
Mwah.
So good. I love that movie.
It is so good.
Yeah.
But it's this. Like, it is. And then also Tree of Life, kind of.
Oh, for sure. Tree of Life. Most Malick. This is kind of, this is the genesis of his whole career, basically.
Yeah, and that was like my initial thought this time watching it. I was like, where have I just seen this? And I was like, Tree of Life. I mean, not Tree of Melancholia, more than Tree of Life. Tree of Life is when we get into the Dawn of Man part, really.
Right.
But then no.
Well, no, the Stargate sequence and everything is kind of there.
Yeah. Greg, tell us about your journey with this movie.
I saw this freshman year of high school, and I remember one of my friends at the time. I remember what classroom I was in and everything. And we were eating lunch in a classroom, and my friend turned to me and he was like, there's this movie where you just watch these spaceships in space for like 5 minutes, just like slowly going across the frame as classical music plays. And I was like, that's not real. It's like, that's fake. But then as soon as I found out it was a real movie, I was like, oh, I got to see that.
So funny.
So I saw it freshman year of high school. And yeah, I mean, I think this is one, it blew me away the first time I saw it. And I love it just as much today. I love it more now because I was, 14 at the time and couldn't fully appreciate why it was so great. But it had this huge impact on me. Yeah, so I revisited this a couple days ago and watched it on 4K Blu-ray with the overture. But yeah, this is honestly this time seeing it like really solidified it for me. Like I'd always really, really liked it, but for me it was like a 4.5 before out of 5. And this time was like a 5 out of 5.
Did you change your Letterboxd review?
I did, yeah.
Nice. I was thinking about it. Like, if I could just describe this movie, like, what I love so much about it is that it is this epic, majestic, major motion picture, but it's so visceral. Like, it doesn't waste time on stupid details. And I think that is just, like, I can't think of another movie like that, Like, other movies that are huge are they have so many, like, there's a lot of talking, right? In huge movies.
I think you put your finger on something that I really like about it. I think it's one of its big strengths is the fact that it's this huge epic scope, but it also feels very intimate because we're so focused in on these there's like 3 chapters in this movie, right? Each of those chapters is very focused.
Right.
And you get these really tiny immersive details, and I think that's why it works so well because it is this huge cosmic scale.
Yeah, but there's no like deep story details or like, oh, I didn't get this scientific aspect of it. Like that's not there. Like you don't need to know anything about space or anything about. Right. Not that other science fiction movies you do, but a lot of other science fiction movies.
Technobabble.
Exactly.
Because you're not a huge sci-fi fan, right? Overall, I thought I remember you telling me that because Kat is.
I know, Kat is. But Kat, you know what I'm talking about. There's no, what did you call it?
Technobabble?
There's no technobabble. It's pure visual storytelling.
Yeah.
What I really respect about it too is that he spent so much time in getting professionals to advise on this. So it is just like everything is portrayed extremely accurately. But as you say, there's no need to like tell the audience how it works.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then, so why don't you tell us a little bit about like the making of the writing of the book, because that's kind of important, right? Like, because they talked to a bunch of people and it was based on like a short story by Arthur C. Clarke, but then
Arthur C. Clarke's a straight up physicist, I believe. So starting from there, all of his stuff is extremely realistic, but he's talking about, getting asked to do sections for time or for life or something, and they're asking him, well, what's your authority on this? And he just points at himself. He's like, I am the authority. You're looking at him. You want to know why this is accurate? This is because I'm telling it to you. And I really enjoyed one piece of this when they were discussing it, like, why go in with a book instead of trying to write a screenplay? And they had this concept of just a screenplay is actually a very boring thing to read, but a novel is like a beautiful piece of literature in its own right. And so that's why Stanley Kubrick wanted to walk in, and they walked in with like 2/3 of a book and they sold it to MGM.
Incredible.
Wow.
And Greg, we talked about this like a little bit when we watched The Shining. Like, we were talking about how Kubrick does this with books. Like, he wants something thick with a lot of detail that he can then pick and choose and use it for mystery purposes. But it's there in the book. Like, if you're
ambiguous in the movie and it's clear in the book.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I do know the book Cat came out after the movie, so it was almost considered like a novelization.
Yeah, I think they went like basically at the point where you kind of break for the Stargate is where the book and was really overtaken by the filming of it. And so a lot of what then happens in Arthur C. Clarke's piece is kind of like him building off of what Stanley Kubrick put into the movie. So it's this mix of a novelization and like an original novel. Also just like very I think it's a good companion piece, honestly, in the way that everything that's unexplained about the science or the mystery of what's going on in the Kubrick film, Arthur C. Clarke is maybe guilty of over explaining, and he'll show you how certain things work, and he'll talk about the tech, and he'll talk about like the science behind how to skip a few chapters ahead. As well as just kind of like going more in depth into like the primates biology, etc.
Right. So Arthur C. Clarke, I know that it's based on like in the beginning when they first met, he had like 2 short stories, one of them about primates, one of them about a monolith type thing, right?
Yeah.
Or is that the same one?
Something
it might be the same one, but it was so funny. I listened to that, Kat. I listened to that thing you sent me, and Arthur C. Clarke said in it that the Apollo mission, like after they came back from going to the moon for the first time in 1969, like called him and said, like we were really tempted to like radio back to Houston and say like there's a giant monolith here, which is so great. Like this movie
this movie beat space travel. That's why,
Yes, this movie came out before space travel. Like what?
Early space travel, but no one had left the atmosphere really.
Right.
Like, we're only in satellite.
Yes.
Well, maybe we should talk about, at least touch on briefly, that because of this movie, there's a big conspiracy theory that people think that Kubrick helped the U.S. government fake the moon landing on a soundstage. So this was fresh on everyone's minds a year later when we did land on the moon.
You guys know what's funny, and this is kind of unrelated, but it hit me today when I was like writing these notes. The movie's divided into 3 sections, right? Dawn of Man, Jupiter Mission, and Jupiter and Beyond. But there's no name for that section with Dr. Floyd, who, like, the space station, the whole space station section is grouped together with the Dawn of Man.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I forgot that there was no chapter break there. Yeah, we should get into that. Well, let's talk about monkeys.
Yeah,
let's talk about monkeys.
When I first saw this, I actually, again, the TV I watched it on was very small when I was a freshman, but like, I thought that those were real apes.
Yeah, they look great. They look really great.
Those masks look good. I was looking into, this was a great excuse to just like look into all the making up. And they're like these mechanical masks that they can control with their tongue, which is how they're getting all these facial expressions. And I'm just like, that looks as good as like what Lord of the Rings had for all their Wicca works.
Yeah. And honestly, this came out in 1968, which was the same year of the first Planet of the Apes film. And it's just funny. That's a great movie, and it is very serious, like adult sci-fi. But this is like this is just on such another level from Planet of the Apes. Like it's doing something so completely different, and it'd be funny to watch those back to back.
Yeah, I mean, so I want to talk for a second about like the way that they shot those scenes, because they've got these photographs which were taken in Africa, and they're using front projection onto this, massive screen setup that's around this rotating stage bottom, and it's just. Basically, that is what all these XR stages are today. Like the stuff that they're shooting Mandalorian on, all of these like massive total LED screen things where you can then control the lighting based on like having the stages. That is what he was doing with this. It's fascinating.
Yeah, no, I've seen like a mock-up of what the room looks like, the stage looked like that they shot those on, and it's massive and it is crazy. And it's funny because when you see this projected or you see it on 4K like I did, it looks amazing. And honestly, if you don't know that it's like basically a huge rear projection, you can't tell.
Yeah.
I love the whole Dawn of Man sequence so much just because it's one of those things that just, it forces you into this movie. And you're like, look, you're not going to get your typical like space plot. Like this isn't some like Flash Gordon thing. You're going to sit here, you're going to get absorbed into this.
Yeah.
This chapter, this beginning of time, and you're just going to observe early man. It's so primal, and so honestly, every time I see it, I almost want that sequence to go on like a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Wow. They communicate a lot.
They do.
They do. I mean, this nice little day in the life of early man, and then the appearance of the obelisk happens, and after that you get like all the things that make men men, where they eat meat, use tools, and kill other men.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so, and you know what's so great? It's like the first time that thing shows up, you're like, what the fuck?
The music is so great too.
Oh my God. It's so good.
Because it helps sell that, right?
Yeah, and there's the classic shot that's repeated of like the sun over the monolith.
Yeah.
And every time you see that, this movie's not complicated.
No.
It's very simple. Every time that thing pops up and every time you get that sun shot, you know that something is going to go down. And they repeat it. It's the fact that they repeat that shot that there's no Easter eggs in this movie. Like, I hate when people try to like analyze this movie and try to figure out what was going on in his mind. What was he trying to say? What is this monolith? Like, no, it's all written right there. It shows up, then they do something crazy that they haven't done before. Jump to the future, it shows up again. Some other crazy shit happens
because it's an alien influence that's progressing man forward. So it's suggesting that the evolution of humans was pushed forward by this alien force, which is the monolith.
Yes, but it's so simple. Yeah. And I love in the Dawn of Man one, it's like he's playing with the bones, right? A little bit. He's just kind of looking around. The music starts.
Yeah.
And then he sees the monolith shot. It comes back. He like looks up as if he's thinking about it. It shows up. Then he smashes the bone. It's so obvious.
Yeah.
But so, I don't mean obvious in a bad way. I just mean like, this isn't some weird mystery. It's not a Marvel movie that you need to like, oh, this is connected to that. It's like, no. I just mean there's no Easter eggs. I'm like repeating myself now. Because,
I would say
like,
Guardians 2 is on this level, honestly.
But that's why I love this movie. It's because it's all right there. It's all in the monolith. It's not complicated. Like,
no, but it is mysterious still.
Yes, that's what's so great.
Who knows what the monolith actually is,
you don't
and where
need
it
to
comes
know.
from.
Exactly.
It's just
you
an
just
external
don't need
force.
To know.
Understanding.
Yeah. I just love it.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I love that motif, like the returning motif of like the monolith and the sun over it.
And again, it's so cliche. It's like, look, can we really say anything about this movie that hasn't been said? Probably not. And I almost hate to talk about the scene where I think the monkey's name is Bone Cruncher, right, Kat? Is it something like that?
It's Moonwatcher.
Moonwatcher. Shit.
Moonwatcher.
Why did I come up with Bone Cruncher?
Bone Cruncher. That sounds like a metal.
I was taking it too
Very
literally.
different read on this movie, man.
But that scene, I mean, it's so copied and well known, and we've seen it a million times, but it's still so powerful.
The music
in the context of this movie and the musicless, you know, it's so powerful to finally see them use the
not
tools.
Just like get off on like seeing him take the next step. You're like, he did it. He's doing it. Like, this is us. Like, go team.
Yeah, and he thinks about it. Like, you can see him thinking about it, and the monolith pops into his head, and it's just like,
right. And then we get that incredible montage of just like smashing things up, and then the next is like the best jump cut in in cinematic.
I don't know what you're talking about, Kat.
What's a jump cut?
I'm just kidding.
It's a match cut, actually, Kat.
Yeah. All right. It's a match cut.
It is a match cut.
All right, and guys, I really enjoyed being on this podcast. I can see I've spent my time.
No, it is. It's a good match cut.
I mean, so apparently, like, they shot the only scene that they shot like outside of the soundstage for the monkey was that low angle because they needed a real sky. And so the story that I was listening to is like, as they're heading back, Stanley Kubrick is just like throwing a broom up into the air like over and over again. He gets all excited, and that's how he decides to like have that like moment of the bone going up and then.
It's awesome.
Turning. Yeah.
This and Lawrence of Arabia are like the two super, super famous match cuts, right?
Yeah.
In Lawrence of Arabia have him blowing up the match and it cuts to the desert. And in this, it's him throwing up the bone into the spaceship. Yeah, look, that's a very elegant way to jump forward in time.
Millions and millions
Nothing
of
else
years.
in human history really matters. It was like that moment, this moment. Here you go.
For me, this movie is like going to church.
Yeah.
It's just like going to church. Like, this is, if you are a film fan, sitting down with 2001 and just put your phone away, turn it up, just get lost in it, turn off the lights. Like, this is church. This is a religious experience. And, you know, it really is. Because,
majestic.
you know, look, this movie did inspire a lot of other stuff, but at the end of the day, this is there's something so potent about it still. Like it hasn't lost any of its power, I don't think, over time. Yeah.
All of the sounds, all of the shifts in sounds, all of the lack of sound, it just works so well to completely enclose you in like what you are looking at.
Yes.
It's just great. Like, okay, there's the weird, creepy choir, right?
Uh-huh.
You know?
Yep.
That's what I'm talking about. There's music coming in at shots of space, right? There's classical music. There's lack of music in most of the other parts of the movie. The way it chooses to be really objective at some points and really subjective at other points, like, and working every single time.
Yeah.
Like, and then the way, when I say like the way it chooses to be objective, like you're hearing what you would be hearing based on the point of view. Like you're hearing the breathing when they're outside. You're hearing nothing sometimes when you're just in space.
Because there is no sound in space.
The one where he gets back in from the pod and there's no sound until he closes the door.
Beautiful.
It's so good. Oh, and you know what else is an incredible moment of silence? When Hal is killing the like 3 sleeping guys.
The beeping of the monitors.
That's it. And they just die. Like 3 people just died. And there's like no sound of struggle or anything. It's so good.
They never even knew it happened.
The clicking and the beeping and it's all just so good.
It feels like a real environment.
Yeah.
Although it's funny because this movie was later criticized for it has this very sterile, clean image of the future and of technology and stuff. And then obviously if you jump like 9 years forward to 1977 when the first Star Wars came out, even though that's not sci-fi, that's fantasy, but like that was kind of that coupled with Alien a couple years after that, where they brought this dinginess to sci-fi, right?
Well, that's what happens when someone with like extreme OCD makes a film.
Yeah.
It's gonna be clean.
Yeah.
Apparently they would like make the stewardesses like wear plastic bags over their costumes when they were like not filming so they wouldn't like touch them.
Oh my God.
No way.
Let's talk about some of those. So I'm thinking now of the stewardess scenes.
I love those.
Some of those photographic tricks are still really impressive, of the camera rotating with the cabin, and then someone will be walking on the ceiling and it'll switch, and it's still really impressive.
That one's incredible. The pen was impressive. I found out that they did the pen by having it stuck to a fucking sheet of glass that they spun. Like it's just a sheet of glass.
I love that sequence. Can I just say him traveling to the space station and the space station itself? It's those like it's very human.
60s.
It's very 60s, but it's also full of like humanity, I feel like.
I was gonna say, how scary is that video call with his daughter?
Oh my God.
That's
it's so
Kubrick's
funny.
daughter too.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's so funny, but yeah, you have that and you have him telling her, it's hilarious. Be sure you tell mom, I'm going to call tomorrow. I have some, like, this is very important. It's those little, like, that's the most human part of the movie, I think, is that section. Because you have Pan Am, you have these familiar brands. There's IBM, Pan Am, the Howard Johnson, Hilton. They're at like a Hilton space station, a space station hotel.
Yeah.
And it's just
and
great.
There's just like a model of bad fathership right there. Just like missing his daughter's birthday. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the stewardess's shoes. You zoom in on their shoes. It says like anti-gravity shoes.
Mm-hmm.
That part is really like I want to reach out and live in that part.
Me too.
It looks so cool.
It does. We should go back to the whole 60s style. Huh?
Yeah. And then, they're announcing, we found a cashmere sweater in this area. It's just very human, that part, is what I'm trying to say. So.
Yeah. Oh, also, no buttons. No buttons on the suits. Because Stanley was like, they don't need buttons in the future.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
He's like, we'll be on buttons, that's for sure.
Before I moved to LA, I came to, in LACMA, I feel it was 2013. 2013, maybe you remember, Kat, LACMA had a Stanley Kubrick exhibit. I think it's been touring the country. I think it's been touring the world. But so I went in 2013.
2013?
Yeah.
I got some bad news for you, Greg. I never stepped foot in this city before 2016.
Oh, well.
I was here. Why didn't you ask me if I knew about it?
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you go?
No.
It was amazing. It's the coolest exhibit I've ever been to. They had the monkey suits. They had the space suits.
How
they had
cool.
the monolith.
Oh my God.
Just leaning against the wall. Yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible.
in light of that, isn't it kind of depressing to know that they destroyed like 90% of the art from this? Like Stanley
Yes.
wanted the models destroyed.
It is so depressing.
Can we just talk about the monolith for a second and how
Yeah.
horrifying it is?
It is horrifying. It's most horrifying because someone probably had to stand next to that with a bottle of Windex and just keep it completely spotless. Anytime you move it, you get fingerprints all over it. No, it is. It's cosmically horrifying.
Incredible. Like,
Almost Lovecraftian. Unspeakable.
yeah.
This unspoken terror and wonder. Everything rolled into one. It's like everything. It's knowledge. It's
an inanimate object that just exudes
raw sexual power.
among other things.
I don't know. I was always so drawn to that.
I was
monolith.
always, I was.
Just kidding.
It's like raw sexual power. It's supposed to be this like 1x3x9 dimensional object, and then when the Stargate opens to Dave at the end, it's like he can see the dimensions beyond it. They're like folded up into it.
It's just so formidable. Like, I don't know. Okay. I know I feel like we're kind of jumping all over the place because this is.
No, we're kind of
making our
going
way through though. I feel like we're doing okay.
Yeah, we are. We're making our way through
I feel
chronologically.
like we're kind of being crazy.
This is like the best way to go about this is chronologically through the movie.
I think so.
And then if we have to jump out a little, like there's like a little branch here, a little branch there, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a question for you guys because I think that there's only one right answer, to be honest.
Okay.
Who's your favorite character?
Yeah, there's only one right answer.
Cat?
Hal.
Obviously.
He's the most
He's the most
interesting
human
character, yeah. Because Dave is not even a real character, right?
Yeah, Dave is funny.
And I guess Kubrick's detractors like to say that he's cold and that his characters are lifeless, and you could say all of that, but like Hal is a complex fucking character.
Oh my god.
honestly.
Yeah. Hal just doesn't want to die. Hal makes a mistake and like cannot like admit it through his pride. Sorry, I keep knocking my charger out. Oh my gosh. Should we just like we could kind of like fast forward through this Frank section, right? We get blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
They meet, they go to like the conference room. All these film bros are like, oh, look at the symmetry and the high contrast of the conference room. And I'm like, Jesus, like settle down, buddy. Like maybe this man has an artistic eye. You don't gotta like talk about the way. It's so obnoxious how this is the point where they'll start, like the film bros will start in about, oh, the layers of meaning and how shots are used to make us think. And I was like, come on, buddy. Have you seen a film before?
Wait, what conference room?
The one that
The conference room that's like the blinding white.
yeah, where the lights are on the walls.
Oh, wait, the Floyd sequence?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But Hal, okay, so do you guys think, so like, did Hal genuinely believe that there was a problem with the antenna, or was he purposely trying to get rid of them?
No, he was trying to get rid of them.
Or was he mad at them for not, what if he was mad at them for not believing him that there was a problem with the antenna, and that's what made him think these humans are going to fuck up this mission, and that's why he wanted to get rid of him. At what point did he want to get rid of them is my question.
I think from the beginning.
I don't.
I think from Hal's inception. That's my take, though. What were you saying, Kat?
I was going to say, great opportunity to bring in the companion piece of the Arthur C. Clarke novel. Well, in that one, it's like very much that the machine makes a mistake, but because no machines have ever made this mistake before, it just like refuses to accept the possibility. And it's almost like this hubris in machine that then causes it to like wipe out, wipe out anything that proves it otherwise. And then it's a fight for its survival when they say they're going to disconnect them.
Yeah. But then here's my thing. Here's my problem with my theory. Why, if the antenna was actually broken, wouldn't he need them to fix it? Why would he kill them? Because he doesn't have arms or legs. He would need them to fix it.
Maybe Hal knows at that point that that's not going to break.
Or he kills him after he's reinserted it. What's the word I'm looking for?
It's to communicate with Earth. Maybe he doesn't want to like even feel the need to communicate with Earth necessarily.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I still like I like the idea of Hal being born bad.
What? I don't think he is though.
I mean, it's funny that you said that because Denley also said that Hal was always out to kill him. So maybe that is like the reading from the movie.
I guess it just got me wondering. I don't know. But you guys know what's funny? Dave is nicer to Hal than Frank is. Frank kind of like treats him like a computer and just like for his birthday, for example, when he's like, happy birthday, Frank. He's like, thanks, Hal. Like, can you lower this? Like his bed, whatever. Nothing, you know? But then Dave is playing chess with him.
Exactly, he's
and
playing chess.
He's nice to him. And he does, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's true.
Heartrending scene.
Let's talk about the scene when Dave is deactivating Hal and just erasing one function at a time, and Hal is slowly dying. What a cool, first of all, what a cool visual way to do that scene, right? Because it could have been a really drab looking, like, it could have just been on a computer, right?
Yeah,
I'm deactivating Hal. But the fact that Dave has to go into this zero gravity room.
Yeah.
And pull out this thing and push these buttons and then these
And
little trays
physically,
eject. Yeah. It looks cool.
It does.
And it just adds something and it's red in there like a
red,
furnace.
yeah.
Yeah.
I really love the way that I love the way that each one of those memory capsules just comes out.
Yeah.
It's such a nice movement.
Yeah, it is.
It's very pleasing.
Yeah.
Okay, do
This ultra
we
clean room.
feel bad
As he
for Hal?
lobotomizes his crew member.
Yeah.
Do we feel bad for Hal? Yeah, I feel a little bad.
How about when he says, I'm afraid?
Yes. I'm afraid. Dave.
You're a good Hal.
I'm afraid. And then he says, I feel it. I feel my brain going.
Yes.
He says,
oh my
I
God.
feel.
That's some next level cosmic terror right there.
Yeah. And then you get just the reactions of Dave in those moments where he's just having his heart broken, but he keeps doing it. Incredible. That whole set is wild too, because it's a 70-foot set they made that's like actually built to spin and apparently just like had shit falling off all the time. So it was like, you know, every crew member was wearing a helmet, which I just like to imagine because they might get like concussed by stuff falling off.
Maybe we should talk about the third chapter of the movie, which is when Dave is sent to
Jupiter and beyond.
Jupiter.
The beyond, I think.
Oh, wait. You know what? Before one quick little
There's
note,
so much to cover, but like, how can you cover it all?
There is so much to cover. I love. There's a little detail of, because it's Kubrick and because it's 2001. So much of this are very like, you know, the camera's planted. It's on a tripod. It's still. It's not moving. It's these glorious canvas shots. And then when Dave manages to get back on the ship after Hal tries to kill him, it's handheld.
Oh my God, yeah.
And like, you don't even really notice it, but it adds a lot because for the first time in this movie, the camera is handheld and you're getting these.
It's not the first
these
time.
low shots. Oh wait, what?
It's not the first time. It's my favorite sight, and I don't want to say it. I'll tell you later.
Okay. And Dave is still pretty like calm and collected, like in terms of his face. You know, he's not yelling. He's not like, "Fuck you, Hal! I'm gonna show you."
And I think that's so much better. People call him lifeless, but I think that his performance is so good. Like, I think it's really, especially when he's deactivating Hal and he's breathing like really heavily, and he's like, "Yeah, Hal, like sing me that song." Like, he's very determined, but you can tell that his anxiety is through the roof. Like, I think it's a really good performance.
I think so too.
That's the kind of astronaut you want to have.
He's
cool under pressure.
Exactly.
Cool
yeah.
under
And
pressure.
he's so cool when he's going to pick up Frank's body and his face is just like kind of mad. Like, you can tell he's mad, but he's also like trying to keep it cool. I think it's great.
You know, it's funny. The guy that plays Frank, his name is Gary Lockwood. Mm-hmm. He's in a great movie. This is off topic, but he's in this great Jacques Demy movie called Model Shop. That if you have not seen, is an amazing low-key kind of character piece that's set in LA in the late 60s. I think he made it right after 2001. But anyway.
Cool.
Man, and then I mean it's nice because he looks so professional, so you really feel like it is this this person who is capable of fighting these great odds, but still that it's the impossibility of space that he has to overcome in order to redeem this human life.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Mm-hmm. And then he goes back and he's shut out. And then that part is great too when he lines it up because you're like, oh, that's so smart.
Well, and Hal pleading with Dave.
Oh, that's like that's probably my favorite part.
As soon as Dave gets back on board, Hal knows that he's fucked.
Just what do you think?
Because Hal doesn't have any hands. You can't stop him.
Yeah, Hal he tries to be a little aggressive first, but the further in that Dave gets, then he starts to plead. I love that, like, that transition.
I really love it. I wish I could play that whole scene, but it's pretty long, actually.
It is pretty long.
It is fascinating. There's almost this, they have this contentious relationship with him because he's in control of everything in their lives. And yet it's when they are inside of him, he's so incredibly vulnerable to them.
Yeah.
Interesting dichotomy. Symbiotic relationship.
Well, let's talk about the third and final chapter of this movie.
Let's talk about the fetus.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to the fetus. So this was the big one. People who saw this when it came out in theaters would go to the theater and drop acid for this Stargate sequence, right? Where essentially Dave's sent to Jupiter to investigate, and he gets sucked into this Stargate, the Monolith?
Yeah, the Stargate is the Monolith. Multi-dimensional space-shaped time something.
This is the part of the movie, because everything up until now, if you haven't read into the movie, you understand what's going on. This is the part where if you haven't seen the movie before, I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, okay, sure with that. But there, as Kat probably knows because she just read the book, there's a very logical, like, this happens, then this happens, then this happens. It's actually funny because there's a clip going around on YouTube of this, like, Japanese reporter who calls Kubrick. And I don't think Kubrick knew that the phone call was being recorded. And the guy straight up asks him, what is the end of 2001? And then Kubrick's basically like, well, I don't like talking about this, but, and then just says it.
Yeah.
Kubrick literally just says it.
The idea was supposed to be that he is taken in by godlike entities, creatures of pure energy and intelligence with no shape or form. And they put him in what I suppose you could describe as a human zoo, and to study him. And his whole life passes from that point on in that room, and he has no sense of time. It just seems to happen as it does in the film. And they choose this room, which is a very inaccurate replica of French architecture, deliberately so inaccurate, because one was suggesting that they had some idea of something that he might think was pretty, but weren't quite sure, just as we aren't quite sure what to do in zoos with animals to try to give them what we think is their natural environment. And anyway, when they get finished with him, as happens in so many myths of all cultures in the world, he is transformed into some kind of super being and sent back to Earth, transformed and made, into some sort of Superman, and we have to only guess what happens when he goes back. It is the pattern of a great deal of mythology, and that was what we were trying to suggest.
I'm so curious as to what baby Dave is going to grow up to be.
I feel like there's Messiah undertones, but I don't know if that's actually played out.
That's funny. I mean, I think that this next generation of Dave, because like Hal talks a lot about like human error. So I think that maybe the next version is more kind of machine-like.
Who are these beings, though, to just keep him for the rest of his life, waiting for him to die, so that they could rebirth him as this?
What a terrible ending for Dave.
Yeah.
I know, poor guy. I feel really bad. I really do.
Yeah.
He doesn't even know what he's been through.
No.
In the
That gives
book,
me some
Arthur C.
comfort.
Clarke gives it a bit of a cop-out where they just give him like one day, and then he like goes to sleep and is turned into baby form. But I think I like the Kubrick version better, versus his entire life is laid out.
Yeah, I love the Kubrick version because you see the way that the time jumps are portrayed, where he'll see an older version of himself in the next room. And it gives it this very eerie,
it's so scary,
timeless quality. Yeah, like you have no sense of what time is. He's just aging very quickly.
Yeah. And then you have a full frontal of the monolith, and it's so scary. Like when he's in bed and the monolith is right in front of him, chills, like really scary. And he reaches out to it.
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
I think it's
the color
scary
black,
because
maybe.
It's unknowable.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it is Lovecraftian.
What?
Yeah, it is Lovecraftian. Yeah.
Without tentacles.
Yeah, I think completely. It's a sleek version of like a Lovecraftian monster.
So here's the question. Would you go through the Stargate?
Would I go through it?
Yeah, given the choice.
Fuck no. Why
wouldn't.
would I? Would you?
Yeah.
What if you go through and then on the other side movies don't exist anymore?
It's okay, I'll be dead in a day.
Yeah, you'll be dead in a day. 2, you'll be a tiny fetus, or actually a large fetus.
When I'm a fetus, I will know all the movies, you know? I'll be a better filmmaker for my fetusness.
Do you think that baby Dave has memory of his previous life?
I don't know. I like to think he does, but I don't know. All right, sight and sound. What's your favorite? Okay, who should go first? Guests first. Yeah, go.
God. Well, then that means I can just snag, because I thought about it and I was like, there's just an unnumbered amount of great sights in this movie. And there's some incredible sounds too. I think for sight, I'm going to have to go with with the moment when and there's so many to pick through, but I'm going with the one where they're in the pod and after they finish speaking, Hal's perspective shows and it's just pure silence and it's their lips moving and you know that they're fucked.
And then it's intermission, right?
Intermission.
Good,
yes.
Yeah.
Also, they had intermission in the HBO Max version.
Yeah. Okay, so my favorite sight, Greg, is the first handheld shot in this, and it's when Dr. Floyd and his team are on the moon, and the monolith is there.
That's my favorite shot. That's my favorite sight too.
Oh yes! You didn't realize that was handheld?
I guess not.
It's so malevolent. It's so
the music is
evil.
there. Yeah.
Scary.
They're
it's
on the
in
moon.
the distance. They're kind of looking at it weird and it's just standing there and the music in the handheld, it's shaky and terrifying. That's my favorite.
Yeah, same.
Here's the thing about the space shots. I love all the beautiful space shots, but I think a part of me loves them so much because of the music.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's weird to isolate a picture of the Earth and say that's my favorite shot of this movie because what makes it so beautiful, I really think, is the music.
Kubrick was one of the great masters of marrying image and sound.
So here's the thing, sight and sound. Yeah. But if we're talking individuals, that's my favorite sight.
Yeah, mine too.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
So my favorite sound of the movie, I'll just go first, is the specific lines, I think, that really get me. At first, when I was young, it was I'm afraid, Dave, and I feel it. That's kind of cliche, right? So now my favorite sound is when he says, I still got the greatest enthusiasm and confidence in the mission. He's trying to be casual, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to play it for you guys.
I've still got the greatest enthusiasm and confidence in the mission. And I want to help you.
Too good. Also, just that constant streaming hiss of maybe it's the repressurization or maybe it's still just because all the air was blown out it just puts you so on edge.
It does. That's good stuff.
It is. Okay, who wants to go next?
Yeah, so when he's in the final location past the Stargate and this is the first time jump you see he's still in the spacesuit and he moves into the bathroom and he hears these truly bizarre clinking, dripping sounds. And it's the sound of utensils clattering. And there's this extremely slow move and his breathing's growing louder and louder. And then he spots the older version of himself from behind. So you can't really tell who he's looking at yet. And the utensils slow and stop. And his breathing stops, and there's just this held beat of silence.
It's so good.
It is.
It's eerie.
Seriously.
Mine is a howl line.
Of course.
It's a little.
It's so good. He's so good.
It's not when he's being deactivated, even though there are so many good lines in there. Mine is one of his first lines. Dave's drawing, and Hal just compliments the drawing.
I love that.
So it's like,
I love that.
Have you been doing some more work?
A few sketches.
May I see them?
Sure.
That's a very nice rendering, Dave. I think you've improved a great deal.
Hal's such a nice guy.
yeah, he's just trying to be one of the crew.
That's why I'm saying I don't think he wanted to kill them from the start. I think it's because they doubted him.
It was all a face. He's two-faced.
I don't think so. What does Pauline say?
Okay. Do you know anything I'm about to say?
A little bit. You want to know why?
Why?
Because I just bought 5001 Nights at the Movies.
Uh-huh.
And now I'm so tempted after everything I watch. I'm just like, gotta look it up.
I do it.
So yeah, I know what's coming.
If you're new to the podcast, we do a segment called Pauline Says, where we read Pauline Kael's review for the film, if it exists. It just so happens that she did write a review for 2001. Let's just say this is okay. These are a couple highlights from Pauline's review. 2001 is a movie that might have been made by the hero of Blow Up, the Antonioni film. And it's fun to think about Kubrick really doing every dumb thing he wanted to do, building enormous science fiction sets and equipment, never even bothering to figure out what he was going to do with them. Then she starts talking shit about Fellini too. And she says, Kubrick never really made his movie either, but he doesn't seem to know it. In some ways, it's the biggest amateur movie of them all, complete even to the amateur movie obligatory scene, the director's little daughter telling daddy what kind of present she wants. And then, this is great. She goes on to say that this James Bond movie, which I do love, You Only Live Twice, is better than this. She says, there was a little pre-title sequence in You Only Live Twice with an astronaut out in space that was in a looser, more freestyle than 2001, a daring little moment that I think was more fun than all of 2001. It had an element of the unexpected, of the shock of finding death in space lyrical. Kubrick is carried away by the idea. She goes on to say, 2001 is a celebration of cop-out. It says, man, it's just a tiny nothing on the stairway to paradise. Something better is coming, and it's all out of our hands anyway. It's a bad, bad sign when a movie director begins to think of himself as a myth maker, and this limp myth of a grand plan that justifies slaughter and ends with resurrection has been around before. She calls it a monumentally unimaginative movie. She fucking hated it.
I can't believe
Wow.
it.
Pauline.
She's been doing us dirty lately.
Honestly, I'm glad that one of us hated it, though.
Yeah.
The rest of
We
this
need that
episode
reality check. You gotta hate Kubrick for the amount of just ability to spend money on this movie that he did.
Oh,
Like-
a lot of people didn't like it, as we will find out.
It's funny
in
because,
our next segment.
well, in her review, she talks about the centrifuge set costing $750,000. That's
Yeah.
by today's
In
standards.
1968 money.
Crazy. I didn't know
That's
it cost that
insane.
much.
You can buy like a small house in LA for that.
Yeah.
Still,
Today, right?
Yeah.
compare that to one of the Avengers movies, which costs like $300 million, and it's like,
I can't believe
Yeah.
it cost that much.
Yeah. But I think this movie wasn't it supposed to be budgeted at 10 million and came in at 20 mil, which is pretty fucking wild that they could do that.
Really?
imagine seeing
It's
this
something
with-
like that. I think that's probably the wrong stat, but it's it went millions over the budget.
Yeah, this is one. If this had flopped, that would have been the end of Kubrick's career, for sure.
Yeah. No, but instead it was a massive success. But can you imagine? Because they took months to film stuff. Again, the centrifuge one is they turned it on for the first time and just literally nails and stuff were falling off it. So they just had to run it for weeks that all the nails would fall to the ground.
Oh my god.
That's the rotating.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah. That is crazy. I can only imagine the experience of seeing this in 1968 theatrically must have been like, because it must have felt like such a classy premium theatrical experience of going to, I'm sure that you got a program
It's
or
so
something.
true. And it looks so sleek, but also just all of these scenes are like grips, like running up ladders to keep the camera from falling over as like things are spinning, and just like a bunch of like men holding on to shit to keep it from falling apart, like
It's
right
hilarious.
off camera.
And wires.
Yeah. Well, should we
Always
get
a
into
pleasure.
Letterboxd?
Yeah, let's do it.
So Jacqueline kindly gave me some letterboxes to read because I don't know what a letterbox is except for something that defines the size aspect ratio of a film.
You need to get it, Kat. Come on.
2001: A Space Odyssey is quite simply the worst thing to happen to cinema ever. Its profundity has caused millions of people all over the world to force themselves to like what is simply nothing more than an exercise in style. Kubrick has no idea what he is doing here.
It's funny, I know.
With no sense of unity. The great filmmakers of the world create a series of events that contain clarity of information, something Kubrick couldn't bet his life on. What is the purpose of what is going on here? Is there any coherent message? I've heard suggestions that is Kubrick's message about the future of humanity. What future is that? Does Kubrick even know? This is Transformers for the art house crowd. Pure style over substance. Nobody actually likes this film. They just seem to be liking it. They just like
Oh my
seem
God.
liking
I'd
it.
pulled that review too.
To which I would say this
Yeah.
woman should read the Arthur C. Clarke novel to explain all the questions she has.
Half a star. This is a goddamn horror movie. I have never been so uncomfortable, so despondent, so on the edge in my entire life. There is not a frame of this movie that is enjoyable to watch because there is absolutely no levity whatsoever. I get the message. I really do. I'm a Lynchian. I know that I've sat through hours of discomfort willingly before, but there has to be some levity. I'm rolling my eyes. The entire film is nothing but a note of dread held too long and too loud. The score of layering screaming and Gregorian chants honestly damn near gave me a heart attack. I don't watch movies to be physically assaulted. Anyway.
Someone gave it half a star and said, this movie is pedophilia. And then someone commented and said, pardon?
That's good. 2.5 stars. I recognize that this film should be good. The technical side is great. Acting is amazing. But it took me 3 days to figure out how I feel about this film. And I finally realized that I just don't like it at all. Nothing against the film. I know it's a classic and that it's amazing. But god damn it, I hate it. Nothing against the film, but god damn it, I hate it. So funny.
2001: A Space Odyssey. Oh, half-star review by Sarah.
Don't read the name.
I'm reading the name.
Sorry,
Okay.
Sarah.
A half-star review. I wish I had never watched this. It was a beautiful looking film, but at what cost?
Oh, I saw that one. Someone gave it half a star and said, I felt like I was losing my mind because of how infuriating the pace of this movie was. This could have been a short film if Kubrick wasn't a little bitch.
That's funny.
Someone gave it half a star and said, please stop pretending like you enjoyed this movie.
I don't see, like, I can understand that in, like, Citizen Kane. But this? Yeah.
That was fun.
I think that pretty much
Yeah.
wraps up 2001. We had so much fun talking to you, Kat.
Thanks for having me. I hope you keep some of it.
Oh.
Yeah, thanks for joining us this week. It was a delight. And especially thank you for reading the book this last week.
You're such an overachiever.
It was a pretty good book. I don't know. You guys have great research on everything. I was like, I got to show up with something that I'm bringing to the table.
Aw.
You know what's funny, Kat? On Friday, I had the idea. I was like, oh, I'm going to read the book. And I even like ordered it on Amazon. And I was like, yeah, I have like 3 days, but I can do it. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to fucking do it. Like, I don't have enough time.
Future read it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to continue being a fan of your podcast. I can't wait to see what new episodes come out, except for I do know I could look at the list.
Thank you.
Next week is the Edward Yang movie, Yi.
Or as it is known.
A 1
on
and
the
a 2.
list. Yeah.
So,
Gonna be fun.
yeah, it's going to be good.
Everyone get ready to watch a 3-hour movie.
Yeah. Until next time, this has been fun. This has been great. We did 2001. That's a big one. That's a big deal.
We had a guest for the first time.
We had a guest.
Bye, you guys.
Have a great week. Seen and Heard is presented by the Arroyo Film Club. Produced by and starring Greg Kleinschmidt and Jacqueline Pistachian. Edited by Greg Kleinschmidt. Music by Andrew Cox. Special thanks to Kathryn Ferentchak.